Welcome once again to our Lessons in Living Character seminar. This is our 10th session that we are having here today. And I want to thank you for your continuing with this seminar. I trust that where you are, you've been enjoying your times of interaction with one another, and that you have all gained greater insight into why it's necessary to teach character to children. In this session, I want to go through some scriptures. And of course, like I mentioned before, you can write on the side of the PowerPoint place your comments of how this can apply to you and to your teaching. So let's begin. Let's begin on page 16 in your manual. What is the cost of building a good fence into the lives of our children? Now, from the story that I gave you, there was a cost. There was a cost for the man that went and built the fence. There was a cost of the materials. There was a cost of his time. There was a cost involved in building a fence that protected others. And the same is true in the life of others and in our life. We all spend our life with a series of events and time. But I believe spending time teaching children character is a good investment of our life and also of their life. Because these principles, as we have said, are lessons in living. These are principles of how we live, especially as Christian believers. And if we want to teach our children godly principles, these are important things to learn. So, what is the cost of building a good fence in the lives of our children? There is a cost. There is a cost of time, energy, effort. Perhaps it's sacrificial. But the benefits are great. Just like a seed you put in the ground, and you wait for it to grow, and you water it, and you cultivate it, then you see the fruit. Now, the next question in the middle of the page is a very probing one. What is the cost of a child falling over the hill? Or we might say, what is the cost of a person who has ruined their life because of bad choices? Perhaps as a young person, they began to get into alcohol or drug addiction. And now later in their life, they are beginning to reap the consequences of the bad choices they made when they were younger. Perhaps it's affected their health. Many times that's true with drugs. It doesn't show in the body maybe as much right away. But later as the person goes along, they begin to have the effects, physical effects, in their body. So there is a great cost of falling over the hill or living by wrong principles. But I believe it's not necessary. These things can be avoided. And a child who's wise, who chooses to live by good principles, godly principles. So as the last square there says, the last slide says, what is wisest, to build a fence or to operate an ambulance service? Yes, it will take time. Yes, there is a cost. But I believe the cost is necessary, and I believe the cost has great benefits in the lives of children and in our life. Because as we teach these principles, as we put them into our life, we also will benefit. Okay, next page 17 is some more scriptures. And I'm just going to read the scripture. And like we said, you can come back later and you can write your comments and your thoughts. How does each of the following scriptures relate to character is our heading. Proverbs 10:13. You'll find wisdom on the lips of a person of insight, but the short-sighted person needs a slap in the face. That somehow it is with consequences for doing wrong things. But as we say, the person of insight has wisdom. They don't need a slap in the face. Proverbs 11:5. Moral character makes smooth traveling. An evil life is a hard life. Have you experienced that sometimes in your own life? I have, where I may have done things I shouldn't have done, and we experience the consequences, either mentally or emotionally, or in our conscience, we experience the consequences. Let's go to next page, page 18. Proverbs 10:23. What does this say? Proverbs 10:23. An empty-headed person thinks mischief is fun, but a mindful person relishes wisdom. Now that word relish means to take, to take as precious. A mindful person relishes or takes as a great treasure wisdom. But an empty-headed person, a person that is not really thinking, thinks that doing mischief is fun. Proverbs 10:23. Oh, the next scripture there is Proverbs 11:6. Proverbs 11:6. Good character is the best insurance. Crooks get trapped by their own sinful desires. You see, when we do wrong, there's consequences. And sinful patterns, sinful desires, develop themselves into patterns of thought and patterns of actions and words. And so having a sinful desire, as this scripture says, can trap us because it turns into bad actions, which have consequences. Okay, the next scripture is Proverbs 11:18. Bad work gets paid with a bad check. Good work gets solid pay. Okay, Bad work gets paid with a bad check. Have you ever received a bad check? It is a very bad thing, isn't it, when somebody pays you and there's no money involved. Maybe the check is, there's no money in their account. So this is saying bad work. When you do bad work, there's going to be no good reward for it. There's no good pay for it. But good work gets a good reward. So Proverbs 11:18 is a very important scripture to teach children. Perhaps you can take these scriptures and you can ask your children to memorize them in your programs. And you can talk about them and how they apply to their life. Particularly in the teaching, when you're teaching character. Okay, let's go to page 19. Why is it important that a society has moral fences? This will be a good question for you to discuss when you gather once again in your groups. Why is it important that a society has moral fences? Why do you think? And then the next slide is, what happens to a society when moral fences are not in place? I believe that moral fences help keep people from doing wrong things, and not only keeping them from doing wrong things, but directing them in the right way to live, the way that God has designed us to live. You see, God has designed us to enjoy this life. Life is not perfect. No relationships are perfect. But God has designed life that we enjoy life. We enjoy relationships. And when we have moral fences, or we don't cross over into areas that are dangerous, we can experience life, enjoying this life. But what happens when there's no moral fences in place? And we learned that from our little story, didn't we? That because of the moral fence on the top of the hill, the illustration, the person did not see the bad consequence of falling over the hill. And so because of that, people get hurt emotionally, and sometimes that turns even into physical and spiritual. Definitely emotional and spiritual consequences that even affect them physically oftentimes. So that is why it's important that we have moral fences, and that we help the people of influence, teachers, leaders, to see the importance of teaching moral values. Okay, the bottom of 19, we say how to recognize good character qualities in children. How do you recognize good character in your child? Building character is not just correcting bad qualities, but it takes the positive route of building good qualities. So how do we do this? Now later on in this course, I'm going to show you some qualities. We have designed 9 different qualities that will be available to you. And they will give you the lesson plans. There's 5 lessons in each one. And this will help you to begin to teach these principles that we have been talking about. Each quality will have a main principle. Each quality will have 5 different lessons with student worksheets. So thank you once again for your attention. We're going to take a break, and I want you to go back into your groups once again and to discuss some of these scriptures we've talked about, and also talk about this question of why is it important that society has moral fences? And what happens to a society that moral fences are not in place? And then next session we'll pick up on talking about how to recognize good character in your children. God bless you.